I mean, everybody at some point, they want to catch the big three: tarpon, permit, and bonefish. So the reason why I love Mexico and I love Belize is because you can catch all three. Actually, you can even catch snook down there and make it a super slam. And the fish are plentiful. So someone who's been there, who's done a few trips, and they kind of want something a little more challenging and a little more diverse, I would say, join us in El Pescador or at Turner Flats, one of the Belize trips.
That was Joe Ballarini sharing one of his top go-to destinations for 2022 and beyond. The main man behind the only saltwater print magazine in the game, today on the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today.
Hey, how's it going today? Thanks for stopping by the Fly Fishing Show. Did you know that you can now leave a rating on Spotify? If you're a Spotify user, if you're listening right now on Spotify, you could help out a lot. If you could click down there and click that star button and give us a 5-star rating today if you've been enjoying the show and getting some value out of it. We'd really appreciate that. I think that probably helps us find a few more people out there that maybe can learn a little bit about what we got going today. Today's episode is presented by the Fly Fishing Film Tour. The Fly Fishing Film Tour is back again. Don't miss this year's 2022 F3T as it returns to theaters near you for another big season. If you can, please head over to wetflyswing.com/F3T to find a show near you. That's wetflyswing.com/F3T to check out a showing and a local event near you. Flyfilmtour.com. This episode is also presented by our brother from another mother. Togens Fly Shop provides high-quality products at a great and amazing value. Killer materials, tools, accessories. Since 2005, Togens has been over-delivering on price, great service, and passion. And now it's time to discover what Togens has going for you. Head over to wetflyswing.com/Togens, and you can check out what they have going right now. You can support this podcast by clicking through that link to Togens online. That's wetflyswing.com/Togens. Togens. Togens. The headman at Tail Magazine and Strung Magazine shares his story of why he created one of the only print magazines in salt and how it all came to be. It's kind of a little bit unlikely. I'm not sure if Joe had it all planned out. We were going to talk about that today. Joe also describes Andros, some doable trips this year and some trips that are a little bit more for the advanced person. We talk about where you should be heading this year if you maybe only have one trip to do, one of these destination salt trips. And we also find out how he does all this and also being a ER doctor. So Joe is an emergency room doctor, and we don't get much into that because obviously that we know that's a crazy world, but somehow he's got these both going and they fit synergistically. That's the word of the week. Synergistic. So let's take that in, stop, and we'll take a little deep breath, compose ourselves, get ready to jump into this one. Without further ado, here is Joe Ballarini from tailflyfishing.com. How's it going, Joe?
Hey, great, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. It's going to be a good one today. We're going to jump into it here and dig into your background on starting a pretty unique magazine and the story there, and a couple of magazines. You got a few things going on here, so we're going to dig into those magazines. But first, take us back to how you first got into fly fishing.
Okay, so I'm originally from Pennsylvania, now living in Southeast Florida, in Miami Beach. We had a summer home in New Jersey, and that's what kind of started me off really fishing. And this was regular bait casting, fishing in the bays and in the marshes for striped bass and, weak fish, pretty much all the Atlantic, northern Atlantic species, flounder, that sort of thing. So one fall, my cousin came down and had this really unique looking fly rod, something I'd never seen before, long rod, strange reel. And he was casting in the surf for striped bass. So that was something that that was new and revolutionary for me. And he's the one who kind of introduced me to fly fishing. So that was when I was around 10 or 11. And it didn't really take, I didn't start buying my own gear until I was probably in my 20s, but that was the first time I started doing it. And, once I discovered tarpon, the rest is history. So I went to medical school in Philadelphia, and one of my best buds in med school was from Florida. And he did his residency at Mount Sinai here in emergency medicine. So I would come down and sleep on a sofa and visit, and then go fish for tarpon in the morning, charter someone and go out. And it was great. I did that for a few years before buying my own place down here. And then, discovering permit, bonefish, snook, the amazing fishery here. I just had to buy a house, and here I am.
And you're still there. So you've been down there ever since?
Correct. So I've been here on and off for about 30 years, and I bought a place in 2009. So a little over 13 years.
Gotcha. Okay. And where are you at now? Which city or town are you in?
Miami Beach.
Oh, yeah. Nice. All right. And then take us to the magazines, how that started, the Tail magazine, and now you have another one going on as well.
Gotcha. So in all my my travels here fishing, and pretty much all over the world fishing, I've been Costa Rica, Belize, Mexico, you name it. But I noticed one consistent theme, that there was always trash and junk. And I particularly noticed it in my fisheries here in Florida. Before I had a boat, I used to do a lot of kayak fishing, which brought you through the mangroves and through all these little nooks and crannies. And there was always trash there. And, consumer trash like Mylar balloons and styrofoam coolers and, that sort of thing. And it was really irritating. So I wanted to, I looked like a trash barge coming back after I went out fishing one, because I'd pick up everything I'd see. And I wanted to do something about it, spread the word, help people to become aware that, we're doing bad things to the water, to the land, to the animals. So I started this website called Fly Fish Bonehead, and it was an informational website, so people would come there and find information about saltwater fly fishing and all the various species, but they also had an opportunity to, be served a message about conservation. So that was the crux of Fly Fish Bonehead. And it was a great idea, but it was somewhat poorly executed. The magazines came about because Tail Fly Fishing Magazine was going to be the reason why people would come to the website. It was the draw for the website to serve them the conservation message. It was a free magazine back then, and it was only available in digital. And we did, in 2 years, we had about 36,000 digital readers. So it was a big hit, to my surprise.
How long did it take it to, from when you started to become a big hit, do you think? Was that a couple years sort of process?
Sort of. It's strange. What happened was about 6 months after I launched Tail Fly Fishing in Saltwater, which was like the dominant saltwater fly fishing magazine, they folded. They closed up shop. I don't think because they weren't profitable. I think because they weren't profitable enough. You know how big companies make stupid decisions. So what happened was they closed that down, and I think everyone went looking for other magazines. And I think we were just kind of lucky at that point, because all the people that were displaced by the loss of fly fishing in salt water ended up finding us. So we had a huge boom, and very unexpected. That was in, like I said, the first year. I don't think Tail was really a big thing. I think it was still kind of niche, and still is kind of niche, but we didn't really take off until we started printing. And even at that, people had the wait and see approach, and they kind of sat back and said, we're going to wait and see what direction these guys go in. And fortunately, it's been nothing but an upward trajectory since we started.
There you go. So the big push was when you got the actual print magazine going.
Correct.
Nice.
Honestly, we had so many digital readers all over the world because it was free. And like I said, the other magazine went out of business. But, that free and people looking to replace something is not ideal. We hadn't monetized it. We hadn't, we hadn't charged anyone for it. So of course it's going to have a ton of readers.
Yeah, exactly. So and when you did that, when you first monetized it, what was that transition like? Did you see a little drop off, or just, I guess you're probably just shooting for a certain percentage of your audience to buy into it? Or how does that work? If somebody goes there now, to see the content, can they read some of it online?
Yeah, they can. They can go to the website and they can see the first 16 pages of any issue. So we still give them kind of a look into it, but our numbers, we were hoping to get 50% of the people that were free readers to convert. And, law of probabilities, if something, bad's going to happen or could happen, it's going to happen. So we ended up with like less than 10%. So out of the first initial pool, I remember being thrilled that we even had 10%. I remember I was talking to Tom Rosenbauer at one of the shows, and because Tom and Orvis, they were supporters early on, so we're Thomas and Thomas, which was very nice, and we had the loop back then as well. But yeah, I told them, we converted 10%. It's pretty good. It's almost 4,000 people. It's not a bad way to start off a magazine.
Yeah.
Looking back, it's terrible. we had 16,000, but a lot of the readers were overseas, and as you know, it's kind of cost prohibitive.
Oh, right.
To mail a big heavy magazine overseas, it would cost $20 to mail it. So the rates are pretty high for overseas, excluding that whole crew.
Gotcha. And that's how many times does that come out per year?
So Tail Fly Fishing Magazine is a bi-monthly publication. It's we make it 6 times a year, starting in January, and it's always 100 to 124 pages. And we pride ourselves in the fact that we don't do more than 20% advertising. So it's 80% content, unlike most of the other magazines out there that are 80% advertising, and the content is so minimal you have to root through the ads to find something to read. It's completely different.
Gotcha. Okay. I want to dig in a little bit to the some trips, some of the destinations. I know you have some hosted trips coming up, quite a few coming up in the next couple of years. But before we get there, let's talk about the magazine. So for somebody who doesn't have it in front of them, just describe a little bit about, describe the magazine to somebody new to it. What can they expect to see in there?
Okay. Well, I'm going to focus Tail, and then I'll do Strung. But so Tail Fly Fishing Magazine is it's a really premium magazine made on high grade paper. It's the paper is very thick. It's not cheap newsprint, and it's totally focused on saltwater fly fishing. We do a soft touch UV finish on the cover, so it's actually waterproof. I don't know if people know that.
Oh, wow.
A little touch we do. And, we have a couple of big name people on staff. I mean, George Roberts, who wrote Master the Cast, is our acquisitions editor. Trey Reed is our managing editor. He has a radio show in Alabama, and he's an avid huntsman and fisherman. We also have someone by the name of Chico Fernandez.
Yeah,
probably one of the legendary top 5 fly anglers in saltwater. So he's been a friend of the magazine for years, but he officially came on board about 1.5 years ago. Andy Mill, who former Olympian and 5-time Gold Cup champion tarpon angler, him and his son, they do a podcast which is fantastic, and we have both of them on the editorial staff as well. We also have Joe Doggett from the Houston Chronicle. I mean, it's a really extensive staff, and a lot of them are not full-time. They just contribute from time to time, but the roster is pretty impressive. It's a really great magazine that focuses on destination travel. We don't do a lot of how-to, but most of the features will give a lot of description, people talking about where they are and what they're doing, and it gives you a lot of insight, because these are pretty well-known and pretty high-end fly anglers. And then we do food, we do drink, we do a lot of different things to keep it entertaining. And one of the comments we frequently get is, my wife doesn't even fish, but she loves your magazine. And it's because we make it aesthetically pleasing, and we make sure that the writing's really good. So it's a pretty solid production.
Yeah.
Now, Strung It's kind of a compliment. And that was a magazine that was born in 2018, December of 2018. And I just got sick of companies that in the fly fishing industry that said, well, we don't do a lot of saltwater. So I said, well, I'll give them a freshwater product, and I'll pair it with, my other passions of, the outdoors. So we include bird hunting, we do duck hunting, big game, fly fishing, food, and travel. So Strung is kind of, I guess, the most similar magazine to it would be Gray Sporting Journal, but I would, that's what we're compared to often. But I would say we're a modern version of Gray's, and I guess you have to check it out. Same deal on the Strung site. You can preview the first 20 pages of Strung of any issue if you go online, strungmag.com.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so you can check it out there, and so you have these two things going. So for you, and you are also, this is kind of like a secondary thing. I mean, how much time does it take? I mean, you're kind of the editor of both of these. Is that the case? And how much time do you spend doing this?
Yeah, it's definitely my side hustle. It was far better than an Uber gig, but I work full time as an ER doctor. And I'm starting to cut my hours back a little bit because the magazines are very time consuming. I'm the editor in chief of Tail Fly Fishing Magazine, and I have someone else doing the editorial work on Strung. That's Ryan Sparks.
Oh, okay.
So I'm only the publisher there, and I kind of oversee that, but I'm not involved in the heavy lifting. Ryan and his team does most of that.
Gotcha.
So, and again, I have George and Trey, who are incredibly helpful. I couldn't do it without them, honestly. So they do most of the heavy lifting on Tail. We work together. We have a meeting prior to launching an issue, and we talk about what this issue is about and what we want it to look like. And then we kind of look at the content we have on hand, and we kind of go get the rest of the stuff we need, because we've been doing it for almost 10 years. So we have all the context we need. So it's gotten a lot easier. What's happening now is it's gone more from, it used to be a scramble for content, a scramble for photos, and where to find things. And now that part's easy, but the base has grown so significantly that now the customer service and the travel, all the other aspects of it have grown. I'm grateful for it, but it's definitely time consuming.
Yeah, so it's continue to grow. And why do you think in the saltwater space with Tail that you're the only I mean, I guess magazines have been kind of going away. Are there other more online versions of kind of the saltwater stuff out there, like magazine wise?
There's another saltwater magazine out of Australia, and it's digital only, and that's it as far as salt.
That's it.
I think part of it is the market. Fly fishing itself is niche. When you look at how many people hunt, you have 100 million people that have hunting licenses, various hunting licenses. When you look at people that fly fish, you might have 38 million people in the entire country. And then you take a subset of that, which is your saltwater fly fishermen. I mean, most of those people, let's face it, trout is the species if you fly fish. That's what fly fishing is all about. So now you take out that subset that does the saltwater stuff, because you're limited to the coast. So you have your Northeast, your Mid-Atlantic, and then you have your Southeast, Florida Keys.
Yep. You
have the Gulf, and then you have Southern California. I can make a debate for Northern California, sea run salmon, and that sort of thing. But you lost the entire interior of the United States, so you lost about 70% of it.
Oh wow, yeah.
That said, it's a very small market, and I mean, how many articles can you read about a particular fishery or a particular thing? I guess the topics aren't just not as plentiful, so it kind of prohibits big magazine coming in. They just can't make a big enough profit. For us, if we make a profit, we're thrilled. So it's not our primary gig. So this is a labor of love for us, allowing us to do it.
I see. Yeah, that makes total sense. So Okay, and let's talk about a little bit on trips. So you've got some trips coming up. Talk about those trips and think of it somebody who maybe hasn't been all around the world and wants to do some saltwater trips. Could they pick up your magazine, read through a few, and get some ideas on where to go? What would you tell somebody that had some questions about where to go?
Well, there's always destination travel in there. We actually have Peter McLeod from Ark McLeod. They're kind of like the yellow dog of the UK. He's our travel editor, and they do great work. But we host a variety of trips, and we do some that are basic, and some that are more advanced, and some locations that are very technical, and some that are pretty easy. So we do that on purpose. For example, we just were in Andros at one of the Deneki lodges, Andros South, in the Bahamas, and that was a trip where you could be an expert or you could be a beginner and still catch fish. Andros is legendary for bonefish. So that said, yes, you can pick up a lot of information by reading the magazine. And then our travel section in the back usually has a variety of trips. And if you reach out to us, one of us will get back to you and talk to you about the trip itself. And, we've turned people away. I've had people call. We're hosting a permit tournament in Punta Allen, and that's in conjunction with Punta Allen Fishing Club and the Grand Slam Lodge. And what we're doing is, we're having a 3-day permit tournament, also prizes for other fish. But to not get into all the nitty-gritty details, it's a tournament, and there will be a winner. It's not like a full-blown competitive tournament that Andy Mill would enter, like the Gold Cup. It's not anything like that. It's to benefit the school of Punta Allen, and that's why we're doing it, because the school got ravaged by hurricane, and it's not up to the standards that we have in the United States. So we're going to try to do something to help out the next generation of kids in an area that we all visit and enjoy, because it's Ascension Bay. It's one of the best places to fish. So that said, I'm way off track, Dave. I'm sorry.
No, this is good. I like it.
So that said, I've had people call about the tournament, and they say, well, I just started fishing a couple months ago. And, as much as I'd love to say, yeah, well, come on down, it's going to be a very friendly environment. It's a tournament. I don't think they should be going on their first saltwater trip in a competitive, because I don't know how competitive people are going to be. From what I'm getting, it's not going to be crazy intense. Everyone's really there to benefit the school, and most people who have signed up even donated additional funds to the school in addition to the entry fee. So that said, when people call me for the Bahamas trip and they tell me they've been to Seychelles and Christmas Island, I say, hey, you're going to be really bored, because most of the bonefish in the Bahamas are smaller sized. Mm-hmm. So once I get a feel, and that's why I like to talk to everyone about the trip. And it's kind of unique in that way, because we will turn people away, whereas a lot of these other travel companies are just looking for numbers. They're just trying to fill trips so one of their guys go for free. I mean, we have a relationship with the lodge. We don't need to go on a free trip. We can go anytime we want, because we're the media, and we do these trips to kind of be ambassadors for saltwater fly fishing. And we nurture the ones who need it, and we challenge the ones who are more advanced. And that's what makes our hosted travel special.
A quick break from one of our sponsors. Dette Fly is established in 1928, is one of the oldest family-run fly shops in the country. I love the history and fly fishing. It's always a big thing for me on the podcast, and is a reason why you should probably check them out. Dette's been around for a long time, producing great service and products, and it's an easy way to support them and support us at the same time. Joe and the family have been leading things there. The Catskill style is always a hot topic for me and others out there. How do you tie and get the right materials for those high quality flies? This is how you do it. Connect with a fly shop like Dette, and they will show you how to put that together. Located in Livingston Manor, Dette is your welcoming place online or on the creek. Their retail and online shop have a large selection of flies, materials, fly fishing gear, and lots more. Of course, Dette also offers fly fishing and casting lessons, as well as guided trips. For more information, visit Dette Flies at wetflyswing.com/Dette, or you can give them a call right now, 845-439-1166. That's wetflyswing.com/Dette, Dette. Okay, back to the show. So the host of travel that you guys are doing are just basically they're your readers or people that are on your newsletter or subscribers for the most part. Is that where these people are coming from?
Correct. Lately, I guess the retail stores are open, so we're getting a bunch of people who bought a copy of the magazine, saw the travel, and made a call. So I don't have history with them, and I don't know who they are because they're not in our database. But that said, it's great because, again, we kind of screen everyone to see if the trip's appropriate for them. Like we're going back to El Pescador in April. That's the 24th through the 30th, and that trip's just about full. So if anyone's interested, I would say call sooner rather than later, because that was a big hit. We did it last year, the COVID breakout trip.
All right.
And it was a really good group of people and a really good time. And most of those people are coming back in addition to their spouses are coming as non-anglers, and there's some new additions. So it's pretty unique how these groups form and they kind of travel together, and they're all great people. I mean, honestly, I'm pretty lucky. I'd rather be affiliated with the people I'm meeting through the magazines than the patients I'm meeting in the ER.
Right. Yeah, that's quite a deal. And I've known a couple of ER doctors in my time, and it's kind of interesting because most of the ones I've known have been really pretty laid back. Well, they've all been into fly fishing, and they've been really laid back. What is it about the ER doctor? Are all you guys like that, where you're just like when you're not doing your doctor stuff, you're super laid back? Is that how you are?
I don't know if we're super laid back. I think it's you definitely have to be an A-type person to be in the ER, because it's high stress, and it's pretty rapid. I mean, it's different when you work in a rural town and you're seeing 6 patients a day, but in a big trauma center, I've spent most of my career in, level 1 or level 2 trauma centers in high acuity ERs and high volume. So for me, it's the wind down, and I'm not always chill. I'm pretty high strung in general. But the fishing allows me, and tying flies and the whole lifestyle that the saltwater fly fishing, it provides an escape from all that stress and, all that death and destruction that I see on a daily basis. I come home and I tie up a tarpon toad and trim it up, and look at it and say, you know what, life's not that bad.
Right.
I'm going to get a tarpon to eat this tomorrow.
Yeah, no kidding. God, I guess, it's a tough field for sure. How does that look with, I guess, I'm not sure how old you are, but you've got a number of years left in the ER?
I'm in my 50s, in my early 50s, and I'm really hoping to be out of the ER in the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is a physician as well, and we're making some moves right now to kind of line up some things to make sure we're okay, our son's okay. So I might have to work for a few more years, but we'll see. I mean, I have to work.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you live in Florida, right? It's not cheap living down there, right?
No, especially Miami Beach. I mean, a pizza is $25 here. A basic pizza. It's insane. Yeah. But coming from Pennsylvania, and I grew up in a small town outside of Philadelphia, it's really kind of it's amazing how different it is. And I mentioned the other publication. Now, Ryan lives in Faribault, Minnesota, and Ryan's cost of living is like 15% of what my cost of living is here. And yeah, I mean, it's the decisions you make determine the life you lead. And, unfortunately, to be in a place like this and maintain, a business, you got to work your butt off.
Yeah, it's definitely. So that's what you do. And then you added the magazine. So it's kind of interesting. You add the magazine to kind of, like chill you out, but at the same time, it's more work. How does that look in your daily, week, hours wise? How many hours are you putting into the magazine stuff?
I'm constantly working on the magazines. We're grossly understaffed, and that's mainly because all of us kind of pitch in and do what needs to be done. And every time we brought someone in, whether it be, an intern or a new hire, there's always a learning curve. It always slows us down. It always kind of, creates a situation where the smoothly running machine is now disrupted. There's smoke coming out of it. So I put a lot of time in, and I make sure that I can do everything and take care of everything. That way I know it's done right. So, George and Trey, they're the most reliable and trustworthy and helpful people I know. And they're capable of doing most of the things that I am, but they don't have the keys to the back door. So, I have to still do all the maintenance, and I have to deal with all the contractors that we have and all the business aspects, because that's a full-time job for them. And they have real lives and real jobs, so they can't take that on. So to answer your question, long answer to a short question.
Yep.
I put in probably about 8 to 10 hours a day, and that's whether I'm working 12-hour shifts in the ER or not. So if I'm not working clinically, I'll put in 15 hours. If I am working clinically, I'll put in 6 to 8. Weekends.
Yep.
I'm constantly working on the magazine.
Yep. So it's a full-time, yeah. So it's pretty much full-time. You got 2 full-time jobs on your hand, it sounds like.
Correct.
Yeah.
And a 6-year-old son. So.
And a 6-year-old, yeah, that's right. So how long until your 6-year-old's going to be traveling around to some of these saltwater destinations with you?
Well, he's already been. I'll back up a little bit. So I mentioned Chico Fernandez. Chico he's just a gem. He's one of the kindest, most sincere people I know, and I've known Chico for years, and I've really gotten to be good friends with him of late, mainly because he offered to a few casting lessons. Chico's pretty well known. He does casting schools in Islamorada several times a year, but he's pretty well known for his casting ability, and he's a smooth caster. So he offered to teach me and my son. So we go down to Chico's house pretty regularly, and my 6-year-old casts probably better than I did when I was in my 20s. So he's already cast in a 7-weight, about 40, 50 feet pretty accurately.
Nice.
And I've had him on the skiff a few times. Now, mind you, we're not in a polling situation where he's looking for fish. I'll stake up on a flat and chum and draw some fish in for him to cast to, so he can see him coming on a flat white surface. But he's caught puffer fish, he's caught jacks, he's caught barracudas, all on fly.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, I started him off on a spinner, but now that he's casting pretty well, I have him fly fishing. So I'm hoping he's going to be 7 in June. I'm really hoping that by the time he's 8 or 9, I could take him on a Bahamas trip or something.
Yeah.
I think by the 8, he'll be ready.
Yeah. All right. Well, talk about some. So let's keep going on some of these trips. So you've done a number of these trips. What's one of the salt trip you've done that maybe is the most feel like was the most challenging, or the one that was like one maybe you'd want to really do again? Kind of one of those challenging ones.
Well, you're lucky, because I just actually answered this question in another interview. But I've been to the Maldives, and not many people can say they've gone there, because it's pretty remote and pretty hard to get to. So I went via Singapore. I was in Asia, and I did Indonesia, Maldives, Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, and fished all these places, Northern Australia as well. And when I went out to the Maldives, it was amazing. I mean, when we landed in Malé, the capital, and you can see Trevally along the seawall.
Oh, wow.
As you're walking in the street. It was just incredible, the life there. There's not a lot of fishing pressure. So that place was amazing, but super challenging, because nobody knew a damn thing about fly fishing. So the guides, even at the big resorts, the guides, they had you blind casting, and it's like, no,
Oh.
I want to fly fish. This isn't bait. I'm not throwing minnows or shrimp out there.
Right.
So you kind of had to teach the guides what you wanted to do, and it was pretty challenging. That said, I would like to go back, because there's bumphead parrotfish. There's, you name it. It's. For me, that was a trip that's more exciting than the Seychelles, because there's less fishing pressure and probably just as many species and quantity of fish.
Oh, wow. No kidding. And that's just so that's kind of off the tip of India.
Correct. It's off the southern tip of India.
Southern tip, and it's not far. Like Seychelles, is that just that you go west a ways to get to the Seychelles?
Yeah, I mean, you can go either way. You can go LA to, I think you have to go to Philippines, and then Philippines to Seychelles. I think that's the route.
Yeah.
If you go west. If you go east, I think you have to go up into Europe and then down into Africa, and then from Africa to Seychelles, maybe even Madagascar. I'm not sure exactly on that one, but yeah, this is you have to go. We actually flew from Florida to LAX, from LAX to Singapore. We made that our base camp because they speak English. And then from there, we did our trips, to Malaysia, to Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and all, that whole route. Then to get to, sorry, I'm way off base, but to get to the Maldives, you have to go to Malaysia, fly out of Kuala Lumpur, direct to Malé, and then from Malé, once you get there, it's all water taxis. So it's they have seaplanes and stuff, but that's mainly for the big resorts. If you don't have a boat, you're not getting too far in Maldives.
There you go. So that was a challenging. Let's talk about somebody who maybe has done a few saltwater trips. Some of these places we've talked about. What would be kind of a more next level? Not quite to the Maldives, but kind of a more of a mid to upper level trip you guys have coming up.
So, I mean, everybody at some point they want to catch the big three: tarpon, permit, and bonefish. Yep. So the reason why I love Mexico and I love Belize is because you can catch all three. Actually, you can even catch snook down there and make it a super slam. And the fish are plentiful. So someone who's been there, who's done a few trips, and they kind of want something a little more challenging and a little more diverse, I would say, join us in El Pescador or at Turner Flats, one of the Belize trips. There's enough variety there and diversity in the fishery. I mean, you can go up into the mangroves and fish. You can go off the reef and wade. I mean, one of my fondest memories of Belize is just walking the reef fishing for triggerfish. And then I saw a huge permit right in the surf there. And, you never know what you're going to get. Then you look to your left and there's a school of bonefish in the mangroves. Belize is great. It's fantastic. And I think it offers even a very experienced angler, I think it offers them enough diversity and enough challenge to where get something out of it.
When you look at it, if you look around kind of the world saltwater, is it easier to break it up by species and say, okay, these are, if you had 20 trips to do, these are the 20 by species, or is it easier to break it up by, say, region or area or country? How would you do that?
That's kind of tough. I mean, you're not going to fish for striped bass down in Florida. They just don't exist here.
So maybe species that you would say, okay, these are these are kind of the bucket list species I want to get, and then you just go to the place that you could get them.
Yeah, I think that's the way we've always done it. We've always said, okay, we're going to target permit. So what's the best place for permit? Well, southern Belize is known to be, the house of permit with Lincoln Westby.
Oh, yeah.
So about, I don't even know how long it was, maybe 12 years ago, I got to actually fish with Lincoln. And, I wanted to see that whole Blue Horizon experience, meet the Westbys and go. And I'll tell you, one of the best experiences of my life. But that's how I kind of pick destinations. I'll say, okay, if I want to catch a tarpon, where I'll look for where they're most plentiful or where they're biggest or, that sort of thing. I'll find some characteristic to chase after. Mm-hmm. And, when I was researching where to fish for tarpon, the northern west coast of Africa is where some of the records are from. Costa Rica, Homosassa, Florida. You find these places where large fish are caught and they're plentiful. And then as you do it a couple of times, like I've been fishing for decades. Again, I'm in my 50s, so I've been around the world, but now you start to look at things like, okay, well, I fished for tarpon in Costa Rica, but I never fished for them in this way. So, I found a unique place to fish for them in Turtoguero. It's a little finger island on the east coast of Costa Rica, and they actually feed on baby sea turtles there. They're in the surf, and there's sharks and there's all kinds of crap in there, and it's absolutely nuts. But you're fishing these, like, I call them turtle frisbees, but they're flies that are like big round green discs that have some appendage hanging off the back of them, and they look like baby sea turtles, and tarpon gulp them down like they're tarpon crack. So
Yeah, that's it.
I'm way off track again, but it's finding not just the species, but the species in a certain environment. If you want to catch bonefish in big schools or in muds, yeah, you can do that anywhere in the Caribbean. But if you want to catch really big bonefish that are going to tail 20 feet in front of you, you go to places like Turks and Caicos, or you go to Seychelles, or you go to places looking for a particular size and characteristic or behavior in a fish.
Yeah.
Most people come to the Florida Keys, trying to find those migratory tarpon that are coming out of the backcountry and going oceanside. And they'll stake up in these channels for days and sit there and wait for 150 or 170 pound tarpon to come through. That's some of the hardest fishing there is.
Right. Yeah, that's some crazy stuff. What's your next the next trip you have coming here? Do you have I'm not even sure. I know you got a bunch of hosted trips you're putting together, but what's the next trip you're going on?
Well, I'm actually, Chico and I are going to go out to Flamingo on Friday, tomorrow. And we fish usually for snook, probably find some tarpon back there, and definitely some redfish. And then the next travel I have, the guys from Thomas and Thomas are coming down, I think in early March. They're going to fish Key West. So I'm going to join them and bring my boat down, kind of be a chase boat and fish a little bit while they're doing their thing. And of course, we have the hosted trip to Cayo Francis, March 27th. That's going to be hosted. I think I host that one. And then El Pescador is hosted by Trey. And then we have our tournament in May.
Okay. What was the first one that you said you're going on, potentially?
Oh, I'm going on all of them.
Oh, you are? Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I go on all the trips, whether I'm the host or not. Yeah, I do. The reason why I have other people host them is sometimes I can't be there for the whole week. Sometimes I get in the day after the first day, or I have to leave a day early. So I always have someone, unless it's my trip and, I'm the dedicated host. But I would be divorced and homeless if if I host a trip every month.
Right. I was gonna say, yeah. With we were talking to Tom last week. I think he mentioned like 20 trips or something that I think he's trying to set up, or I don't know if those are all saltwater trips, but I guess some of them are. So you're doing, so you got some hosted trips, and as the host, that requires a lot. I mean, quite a bit of work there too, right? When you're the host, is that kind of like a full-time job as well?
It is. Really, everyone thinks it's glamorous to be a host, but I mean, it's a lot of work. You have to make sure you have to attend to. You're the personal valet for 10 to 15 people, and I'm not complaining about it because no one makes crazy requests and no one's difficult. It's just, you got to be on your game, and you have to make sure everybody's tucked in, everybody has what they need. And I'm a little fanatical about gear, so I usually show up and I check everyone's gear and make sure knots are good. They have the right line on there. I give everyone leaders. We manufacture leaders, so I usually bring leaders and get everyone, with a 12-foot, either fluorocarbon or mono, whatever they prefer. But put new leaders on. I usually bring hundreds of flies. I love to tie, so it's kind of my release, and they go to good use because everyone uses them. So yeah, it's a full-time thing, and it's a lot of work, but there's also a lot of reward at the end of the day when you're going through hundreds of pictures that everybody took and pulled together. It's a pretty cool thing to see all those smiling faces and all those great memories that people are going to have for a lifetime.
This episode is also presented by the CRC system from Trxstle, providing secure and convenient storage for your fully rigged fly rods. Did I mention they're fully rigged? This is not breaking down that 4-piece rod anymore. This is not tucking it away in the back of the car, letting it bounce around. This is putting it in a secure storage unit on top of the car, bang down the road, and you're still covered. The CRC system comes with these secure mounting claps. These can go on top of a Thule rack, Yakima, even on top of just your normal luggage rack. You can strap this thing down, and it telescopes out to, I think it's up to a little over 10 feet, so you can get in your full-size rod, which is amazing. And it just makes it convenient and faster to get on and off the water. I know that, lots of us are coming out of town, getting off work, and you only got a quick shout to get out there. So having your rod fully rigged, ready to go is huge. You don't have to worry about it. Just know it's up on top. You got your vest in the back. You got a fly box. You got your waders, whatever. Just make it simple and make it easy. Lots of things covered here for you, so I can't get into it all today. I'm just going to have to send you over to Trxstle, wetflyswing.com/Trxstle. And that's Trxstle spelt specifically here. Remember this, Trxstle. So it looks like Trxstle, right? Looks like Trxstle, but it's Trxstle. Trxstle. Check it out. Check them out right now. John's got some good stuff going there. They're kicking some butt. So you support this podcast right now. Easy way to support it is to go over there and click through that link and go check out Trxstle and see how they can serve you. Okay, back to the show. What are some, when you're getting ready for the trip, what's that look like for you? Do you have kind of your 100-point checklist to get everything? I mean, give us a few tips on preparing. If somebody's coming on one of these hosted trips with you, how do they know to make sure they're all good to go? They have everything they need.
So, well, most of them call me directly because once you're on the trip and once your deposit's down or you've made your payment, you're basically priority one because you're definite. So usually they call me directly or they text me and they say, they'll send a picture of a fly or they'll send a picture of a fly line from the store and say, should I get this, and that type of thing. I usually tell people don't overpack. Because that's what everyone does. They come to Belize and they're going to fish for 4 species, so they think they have to bring like 8 rods, the primary rod and a backup. When the reality is, I've kind of simplified everything over the years of doing it. And, you can probably get away with a 7 weight and a 10 weight there. You fish your 7 for the smaller permit bonefish and snook, and then you fish 10 for the bigger permit and the tarpon. You can easily get away with 2 rods. So my advice, and it's consistent with everyone on the trips, is basically, simplify, think about what you actually need. And then, I tell them, you really need this, this, and this. If you want to bring this, that's fine. They're bringing backup reels. They're bringing all kinds of stuff. It's like, when was the last time you blew up a reel, on a hosted trip, on a 3-pound bonefish?
Yeah.
So, I kind of talk them out of bringing all that unnecessary stuff.
Yeah.
And then, I'll send them pictures of the flies that I recommend. And I tell them, you can tie these, you can buy these, but I have them. So don't spend a lot of money on flies. And, ask anyone that's been on my trips. Flies have never been an issue. Leaders have never been an issue, and gear has never been an issue. I think the biggest thing is people always forget sunblock. People always forget like hats and protective gear. So what I usually do is I decrease the amount of gear I bring. I'll bring like an extra rod and an extra reel in case someone breaks something or, falls off the boat, something silly, just so we have extra. The lodges usually have extra gear as well, especially El Pescador. They have a full fly shop there. So, it's pretty sufficient. But, I replace the extra gear with protective stuff. So I'll bring extra hats. I'll bring extra sunblock. I'll bring sun gloves. I'll bring buffs. I'll bring everything that people need. I'll always have an extra shirt, extra pair of long pants and that sort of thing. So that way people aren't getting burnt because, you get sunburn on the first day and your whole trip, you got to hide from the sun for the next 3 days.
Right.
Yeah. So my focus is more on making sure they have the things to be comfortable because, they can use my stuff if they're missing a piece of gear. I'm not as worried about the gear. I used to be back before I knew, how little you actually destroy equipment. That said, if you go to Seychelles, I would definitely bring extra stuff. But if you're going to Belize, you're going to the Bahamas, you're not going to blast through equipment. So.
No, so typical. So don't make it too difficult. Just get your couple of rods, just your couple of setups, and then your gear, and then and then pretty much you're flying in. Are people flying into? Let's take that. I guess you mentioned the Bahamas. Is that a trip? Do you have some stuff you're going to be doing there, or is that one you already did?
We did that one in November. We have another one coming up in November as well because it was a big hit, and it seems to be a good time of year. But anyway, yeah, we and that Bahamas trip, we that particular lodge, Deneki Lodge, Andros South, they have they're right on the beach there, so they have an extensive area to cast. They have an old skiff set up so you can stand on the bow, and they have markers like shell markers with distance. So what we do there is George actually hosts that trip because he's the author of Master Cast as well as Saltwater Naturals, and he did the video series for Master the Cast. So George is he's a student of Joan Wulff. And
this is George
Roberts. So George V. Roberts Jr., if people are going to Google him and find his books. But, he's probably one of the most underrated casters in the whole country. I would put him in the top 1% of all casters out there. I mean, you have Mark Sadati, who's fantastic. Obviously, you had Lefty, and we still have Chico. There's a lot of good casters out there, but George is never mentioned in that list, and he really should be. Mm-hmm. But George does video casting lessons on that trip because he has the time and the space to do it. So anyone that goes on that trip, they get a free video analysis with George. He actually breaks down their cast in this casting program. I forget what it's called, but not a casting program, but a video program. Mm-hmm. And, it's people come out of that trip and they're like, I'm glad I did this. It's, I'm a far better caster than I was before I came here. When your group can walk out saying something like that, or, they learn some technique or how to tie a certain fly, or, my methods for packing things, whatever.
Right. Or how to cast again the wind, how to cast with the wind.
Yeah, how to backcast into the wind. That's one we're working on.
Oh, there you go.
But when they come out a stronger angler and they had fun for a week, what more could you ask for, honestly?
So, and you said the Bahamas, so at this site, you're going to go there and get plenty of bonefish, but maybe not any super monster fish. Is that kind of what it looks like?
Yeah, I mean, Andros is, if you go north Andros, there are larger fish. You go west side, there's larger fish. In the bigger creeks, you'll find the solitary fish. I mean, they're there. But the majority of the fish that you'll be fishing for in the Bahamas are, smaller, under 3 pounds. And, they're basically coming out of the channels on the reef. They're just all around in big schools, and that's how you usually find them. The bigger fish, they become more solitary. One theory is that as a fish gets caught and breaks away from its school, those are the fish that become the solitary large fish that we catch on the west side, and up north they move around and become independent. I don't know if that's true or not, but they're there. I mean, it's the perfect place because if you want to be challenged, you can go west side and you can hunt, and that's what I call it. You hunt for that solitary or those big bonefish in pairs. If you're new to the game and you just want to get on the books and have a good day and catch 20 bonefish, you stay on the other side. You can tailor your experience at Andros based on your skill level. So we had people who had been fishing for 30 years and people who started 6 months prior to going on this trip, on that Andros trip, and everybody caught fish and everybody was happy.
Yeah, that's it. That's what you're saying. It's for everybody. So that's a good, for a first timer, somebody who's done a few just to get out. Pretty easy trip. And is this a Deneki? Is this kind of a lodge everybody's going to there? Is that kind of situation?
That's one of them. There's a bunch of lodges there. We happen to have a relationship with Deneki because we basically have been going there for years. I think I was first time I was in Deneki, I think was maybe 2008, 2007, maybe even earlier. I don't even remember exactly, but that's a place that we know well. They treat us well, and they also accommodate any special requests we have. So they're pretty cool about it. They've always been good to us. There's other lodges there. There's Bears. There's Pleasant Bay. There's a whole bunch in South Andros. I think there's 5 or 6 lodges, and there's a couple in North Andros as well. We just happen to like this one because It's only a few minutes away from the airport. And what I usually have the group do is they fly into Fort Lauderdale, and then we jump on either, if we have enough people, we just charter a plane. If not, we just jump on one of the private airlines that jumps over to Congo Town every day. So we don't have to deal with the hustle and bustle of the major airlines and the transfers going from Nassau to Andros, and it's pretty streamlined. We've been doing it for so many years that it's kind of easy for us.
Yeah.
And the people that come on that trip, they get the advantage of our experience, and it's a pretty comfortable ride for them all the way around.
Pretty easy. That's cool. Well, let's take us out of here and start this with the Fly Shop Friday segment we have here. And what I like to do is just start out with your local fly shop. I'm not sure if we've talked about that yet. Do you have a shop nearby, near where you're at down in Miami?
We don't have a shop in Miami. Well, we do have a shop in Miami, but it's awful.
Is it, Roy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to completely trash it, but
yeah, no. Yeah, we don't want to trash anybody. Let's keep that. So you don't have. So there's not a. That always. I guess it always surprises me because I've heard that before. Like even up in some places in New York and stuff, right, where you would think there's lots of fishing, but you don't hear about the shops. Is that just because? Why is that?
Well, for example, Miami's expensive, so the rents are expensive. So I don't think a small retail shop. Fly shops have to be pretty big and have a lot of volume to make money. And, in order to have proper inventory, you need a big space, and it's expensive. So I think I know there's not one on the beach, and there's never going to be one on the beach because, I mean, even some big name restaurants are closing up shop because the rent's just too much. I mean, 45 grand, 50 grand a month.
Jeez, really, for rent?
Yeah.
Crazy.
So, Fly Shop is never going to exist on Miami Beach unless, someone buys me a building and I open it.
Yeah, right.
But that said, there's the local fly shop for me is Old Florida Fly Shop in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay. Old Florida.
Yeah. So I actually have, all the stuff I need here. I mean, I pretty much have my own fly shop. I have shelves and shelves of fly tying materials and hooks and you name it, it's all here. But when I actually need something or, I need to order parts or take something in for repair, I use Old Florida. Yep. And they carry the magazine. Darren's an angler and does a lot of good stuff for the Saltwater Guide Association. They do a lot of giveaways and things. So he's part of the community. And even though it's a little bit of a schlep to drive up to Fort Lauderdale and whatever, that's my shop.
Yeah, that's it. And along with that, on the fly shop. So, and give us we've been talking today a little bit. I guess we've been talking all over the place, but let's take it to that Andros trip, or I guess you could just keep it in general. Give us a tip, kind of saltwater fish. So somebody's out there. They're maybe it's their first trip down there. Maybe it's that person you said has only been doing it for 6 months, been fishing, and he's out there. What would you tell? What kind of tip would you give that person?
Wow, I can go in many different directions.
And is that you when you're out there as the host? Are you actually on some of these trips out there on the boat, kind of, or is it more the guides are always there and you're kind of not really, providing the tips and tricks necessarily?
It varies. I'm usually on the boat, and whether I'm the authority or not, people ask me questions anyway because it's I'm editor of the magazine, I'm the host of the trip, blah blah blah. But no, they surprisingly the guides know their fishery, but they don't know a whole lot. Many of them. I mean, some of them are super knowledgeable, but many of them don't even know about the ecosystem and what the fish are eating. They just know that they show up on this flat at a certain time under certain conditions. And I find this to be true mostly in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. It's not their life goal to be a fishing guide. It's just that they're kind of in it because there aren't any other opportunities or many other opportunities. So this is the best way for them to make a living. Gotcha. The ones that are really passionate and love fly fishing, they're the guides who are great. They're the ones who are staying out late. They're the ones who are, they're tying their own flies, but that's not all of them. So I guess my advice usually is, I always check gear and I always give people kind of the fundamentals, like a new angler. make sure, you just cast to a fish, you just hooked up, you let it go. Now you're excited and you step up on the deck to cast again. Well, did you check your leader for any nicks? Did you check your knots? Did you check your hook to make sure, you know what I mean? And these are things that like the new guy won't know because he hasn't made that mistake yet, because he hasn't done it enough times.
Yeah.
So it's more guidance rather than tips. It's kind of preventable mistakes from happening and giving them a little insight, so they're not as much a rookie, after a day on the skiff with me.
Yeah.
The biggest trick people are excited about is how to open a bottle on a skiff without a bottle opener. And there's about 15 different ways to do it. So, but a lot of people have never a bottle of beer, with a lighter or,
right,
with the console of the boat,
Yep.
So, but it's fun stuff, and passing that knowledge on, and also learning from others. I mean, I fished with in the Bahamas with a guy who I think he was 75 and he was 72, and this guy's fished all over the place. I mean, he has a vacation home in South Carolina, just visits to go red fishing. So I mean, he's an avid fly fisher, and he caught his first barracuda on a fly with me, and that was great. I saw it, gave him the rod, told him what to do, and he kind of knew what to do. I don't think he really needed my advice, but it was really cool to watch his excitement and watch this thing jumping out of the air, and sharing that experience with a veteran angler. So a lot of good stuff, and
Yeah. No, it's good. You mentioned flies. So you're out there for bonefish. What's your one fly you're putting on there?
Well, it depends on the location. I have a fly that was featured in Tail Fly Fishing Magazine. I don't remember which issue it was, but it's my evolution fly. So Bob Branham is he's one of the legendary guides here in the Keys. If you come to Miami and you say, I want to catch a permit on a fly, who's the best guide? You go to any fly shop, you go anywhere and ask anyone who knows. They're going to say Bob Branham or Carl Ball. They're going to say those two guys. And I know both of them personally. I'm very close with Bob and good friends with Carl as well. So they both fish the bay. They both fish for permit, and they both have their own flies. They're remarkably similar, but Branham's fly is kind of a take of the mother of epoxy. So to make a short answer incredibly long, I've modified his fly. So his fly is pretty basic. It's a couple of hackles, and then it's a palmered hackle, and then an epoxy head. And this is all based on Del Brown's Merkin, because they noticed that maybe the legs gave it some action, but it was the weight, it was the sink rate of the fly that made the fish chase it. It had the right sink rate. So Branham's fly has exactly that. You cast it, it plunks in the water like a rock, it sinks to the bottom, and then when you strip it, it bounces up and drops again. So it has this incredible action that makes the permit go crazy. And I love it because, you're not always going to make a perfect cast. Let's face it, you're going to make a perfect cast maybe 5% of the time, 10% of the time, even if you're a good caster. So the ability to move the fly is everything. So I've modified permit fly, and I created the evolution fly. And it's kind of half Peterson spawning shrimp and half Bob Branham's fly with the epoxy head. So that's my go-to fly for most situations. I like it for permit because I don't know why people throw these big chunky crabs that you can't strip at permit, because you're never going to put it exactly where you need it. So once you move that fly, it has that unnatural movement, and the fish spook and they disappear. I always cast a shrimp pattern, first, because if I can get them to chase, then I pull the jack out of them, and they'll usually eat it. I have to be able to move the fly. If I'm dealing with, with just a plain old crab, because I'm not that great a caster. I mean, I can't cast 60 feet and drop it in a little, cup.
Right. A little cup. Exactly. Nice. Well, I'll put some links in the show notes to some past episodes we've had on some of the saltwater and permit focused and things like that. Well, before we get out of here, Joe, anything else you want to give a heads up on in the next kind of year or whatever? I know you got some big trips coming. Anything else you haven't talked about here today?
No, we have those trips, and I encourage people to join us. It's always a great group, and it's always informative, and you always go home with something other than great memories, because there's a lot of skilled anglers on these trips. That, and also we have fluorocarbon and monofilament leaders, and ours are they're pretty good. I got thumbs up from Andy, from Chico, from Sandy Moret, from a lot of people that these are quality. And I encourage people to try them out. They're readily available. They're cheaper than most of the other brands out there, and I think we may be the only one that's actually manufacturing a 12-foot, 10, 12, 16, and 20-pound tippet strength in fluorocarbon. Mm-hmm. So take a look, especially if you're going on a saltwater trip. They're going to help you out a whole lot.
And these are like, what are they? This is like your brand of leaders?
Yeah, they're tail fly fishing magazines. We call them Perfectionist leaders. They're looped end. They come monofilament, and they also come in fluorocarbon, and they're 12 feet long, and they're made specifically for saltwater fly fishing.
Oh, gotcha.
Because of that added length. I mean, most tippets are only 9 feet, 10 feet, but that extra 2 feet when you're fishing spooky fish in crystal clear water really makes a huge difference. You can also, if you like, a lot of people like to nail knot or blood knot things, but you can do a looped end if you want, cut off our loop and make your own loop, or you can nail knot it. So there's some flexibility without losing much of the butt section.
Gotcha. And do you guys have a few different products with tail or like swag, or what do you guys have there? Or is this the main thing you guys have?
We have some hats and shirts, but we don't make a lot of stuff. We kind of focus on the fishing.
Yep.
Most of the stuff we have is related to fly tying and fly fishing. So we have the leaders in mono and fluoro. We have 3 different types of fly tying scissors, and they're all branded. The razor scissors are the best out there. They're super sharp. I mean, I could probably do surgery with these things. I found a medical grade manufacturer, and I had these made.
Oh, right.
So these are pretty much top of the line, and they're cheaper than most of the non-medical grade, junk that's out there. But we have fly tying scissors. We make some boxes, but COVID kind of put a big halt to our product line because the retail stores were closed, and we pretty much sold out of stock, and we haven't replenished it because we don't know when this stupid pandemic is going to end. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up COVID because I'd like you, since you're a doctor and you're on the front lines. I'm curious, are we kind of at the start of the end of the world, or what's your take on it? Are we all going to be good? Put our mind at ease on all this stuff. It seems like we've been in a crazy world the last few years, and what's your take on it? Quick take. Give me your under a minute take on it.
Okay. Crazy is an understatement. We have done things for this virus that we haven't done for much more lethal situations. So 2 years ago, I wrote something in my letter to the editor that said, the world has gone crazy. We're being required to isolate and wear masks, and nothing we do is going to prevent this virus from spreading. And 2 years later, I can thump on my chest, and puff out my chest because I was 100% right. It's completely illogical. This is just another virus. Less than 1% of the population was affected by it. And when I say affected, terminally ill or very, very ill with long-term effects. So it's essentially a really, really, really bad flu. And this is going to be with us for the rest of our lives. This is not the first COVID virus that causes disease in humans. If you've ever had viral pharyngitis or a cold that was not a rhinovirus, it was probably a COVID virus, because COVID is the number one cause of viral pharyngitis in humans. Not this particular one, but COVID viruses are all around us, and this thing is going to be part of life. It's going to be a seasonal thing where, the COVID bug this year has this symptom, this primary symptom, and it's going to be like the flu, where we guess at what it's going to be, and it comes around seasonally, and everybody gets it, and everybody gets better, and we don't shut down the entire world for it.
Yep, there you go. That's a good summary. Nice, Joe. Well, hey, thanks for the time today. Appreciate you digging into this and excited to hopefully connect with you on some stuff coming up here. And yeah, thanks for all your time and all your knowledge and keeping the magazines going. This is exciting. I'm going to definitely check out Strung as well. I think you've got a lot of good stuff going. So looking forward to keeping in touch with you.
All right. Sounds good, Dave. Nice talking with you. Take care.
So there you go. Want to find all the show notes, all links, everything else we covered today, head over to wetflyswing.com/289. 289er will get you there. And I know I say that a lot at the start here, but it's just a reminder that 289 is where a lot of these links that we can't put everything in everywhere. So if you want to head over there, this will be the full summary of everything we got and some bonuses, including our app. Well, it's essentially not an app, it kind of is, but it is a transcript of everything we talked about here. Every single word is written down there in this transcript that you can read and search. So it's a killer way to search. I always like to give a heads up to that. Just a reminder, I want you to head over to Spotify right now and leave that 5-star rating if you can. If you've been enjoying the show, if this episode was helpful, this gives you some inspiration to get going, I would love for you to help us out there, help out the community. Thanks in advance if you've already left a review. We have another mega dega superstar on Tuesday, the Tuesday show, Harry Murray. If you haven't heard about Harry, he has been leading the way back in the Northeast, in the Virginia area, and just been going for a long time. Smallmouth bass, trout. He's got all sorts of good stuff. We're going to focus a little bit on brook trout and, of course, his story next Tuesday. So click that subscribe button if you can, if you haven't already, and you will get updated when this Harry Murray, this epic episode comes out with Harry. This guy has been a big influencer for many of the guests we've had on this show, and I'm always excited when we get some of these big people, big names, big. He's got a unique. I love his accent too. It's a pretty awesome show. So I think you're gonna love this one. I'm going to let you get out of here. I'm going to skip the chitter chatter today and let you get to the next episode, whatever you're working on, or get to, I'm not sure. Maybe you're on YouTube. Maybe you're heading over there. Maybe you're just getting back out on the water. And if you're on the water, I want to say good luck today on your fishing. And I hope this episode gives you something to think about on your way home, about some other areas we can go to, because I know I've been talking about this for a little while, but I'm hopeful that this year is going to be a year we're going to get out and do some cool stuff. Some cool stuff in salt, some cool stuff in fresh, some still water, some river, you name it, we're going to do it. Thanks for your support today. Thank you for being a listener to this show. I know you have a lot of places you could be right now, and I appreciate you listening to the very end here. And I'm going to let you get out of here. All right. Have a great day. See you on the river. See you on the water. See you online.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.